90.5.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and the champion of liberty, of human equality. Let's salute him, fellow Ghanaians, the nation's founder, Sergeant Kwame Nkrumah. May God bless him, Ghana showboy, Africa's great son, Sergeant Dr. Nkrumah.
Ago when you come with Makasa Kakra, and when you come when Tiam Kakra, Menkasapi. Damabara Makade Bakans Babukakran and Yamakan Fancy. At long last, the battle has ended. And thus, Ghana, your beloved country, is free forever. And here again, I want to take the opportunity to thank the chiefs and people of this country, the youth, the farmers, the women, who have so nobly fought and won this battle. Also, I want to thank the valiant ex-servicemen who have so cooperated with me in this mighty task of freeing our country from foreign rule and imperialism. And as I pointed out at our party conference at Sorbonne, I made it quite clear that from now on
I love Radio Gold 90.5.
we must change our attitudes, our minds. We must realize that from now on we are no more a colonial but a free and independent people. But also, as I pointed out, that also entails hard work. I am depending upon the millions of the country, the chiefs and people, to help me to reshape the destiny of this country. We are prepared to build it up and make it a nation that will be respected by every other nation in the world. We know we are going to have difficult beginnings, but again, I am relying upon your support. I'm relying upon your hard work. Seeing you in these thousands, it doesn't matter how far my eye goes. I can see that you are here in your millions. And my last warning to you is that you ought to stand firm behind us so that we can prove to the world that when the African is given a chance, he can show to the world that he's somebody. We shall no more go back to sleep anymore. Today, from now on, there is a new African in the world. That new African is ready to fight his own battle and show that, after all, the black man is capable of managing his own affairs. We are going to demonstrate to the world, to the other nations, young as we are, that we are prepared to lay our own foundation. As I said in the assembly just a minute ago, I made it point that we are going to say that we create our own African personality and identity. It's the only way in which we can show the world that we are ready for our own battle. But today, may I call upon you all that at this great day, Let us all remember that nothing in the world can be done unless it has the purported support of God. We have done the battle, and we again rededicate ourselves not only in the struggle to emancipate other territories in Africa. Our independence is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of the African continent. Let us now follow Ghanaians.
He has labored,
Let us now
he has suffered to lead his people into the land
and
of
for
freedom.
only
He
2
is the
seconds
Redeemer
in your
and the
thousands and millions,
champion
I
of
want to ask you
liberty, of human
to pause
equality.
only for 1 minute
I salute him,
and give thanks to Almighty God for having led us through obstacles, difficulties, imprisonment, hardship, and suffering to have brought us to the end of our troubles Ago.
All right, so it's 28 minutes after 9 here on your power station Radio Gold 90.5 FM, coming to you live from Latibio Koshi. This is Alhaji and Alhaji, the mother of all talk shows, running between now and 12 midday. Today, Saturday morning, 3rd of the month of March 2018, brand new month, and this is the first show in the month of March 2018. I hope your morning has been good so far, and you're very much poised for the discourse this morning, with a lot of emphasis today being laid on the security situation in our country. The fact that there have been several reports of armed robbery attacks on individuals, corporate entities throughout the entire week. There's been reports of mobile money operators being attacked by these armed folks. That of Forex Bureau operators who have been attacked by these armed robbers. Just recently, there was the attack at the industrial area, the daylight robbery of Royal Motors at the industrial area, and matters arising. There have been several other issues, people's personal experiences being attacked by individuals within their neighborhoods, and so that sense of insecurity which has been created in our country. This called for His Excellency the President to end his 10-day tour and come down to Ghana so he and his advisors, his ministers, his national security couples to look at how they can resolve the situation. So as you listen to me this morning on Alhaji and Alhaji, how safe do you feel as a Ghanaian, considering that the safety of Ghanaians and their properties was one of the key promises captured within the manifesto of the NPP? How do you feel 1 year on when these issues are escalating in Ghana? That's the matter that will take center stage today on Alhaji and Alhaji, the mother of all talk shows. The IGP has reshuffled his colleagues, or should I say his fellow police officers that he works with. Would this in any way help curb the situation? We would look at that as well on the show this morning. So it's all about the security of our nation, Ghana. As always, you'd know this is very interactive, where your thoughts, your views, and your comments play a very important role. And so I urge you to join us with your comments, with your experiences, with your thoughts on the submissions that would be made this morning on the show. And you can send it to me via Facebook and Twitter using the handle at Samuel Ishen GH. It's for both Twitter and then Facebook at Samuel Ishen GH. Ishen is spelled ESHUN. You find me there, you add me, you follow me, and then you start sending your comments through. The mistake some of you have been making is simply just to start sending me the messages on Facebook. But I see them later on, maybe after a week or so, because we are not friends. So you add me on Facebook, and then your messages will come to me directly. Kindly do take note of that. So as always, I take the time to take you through the current headlines of the newspapers as it stands today, and then we move on to look at some other issues. And so if you check out the front page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper, it's got pictures of one Elvis Nate and Sumaila Lalimo Beni, and it says 3 robbers jailed 64 years. Also, there's a picture of the vice president, and it says government will curb armed robbery. That's according to the vice president and speaker. Minority clash in parliament. Blame vigilante groups for upsurge in violent crimes. That on the front page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper. You will find on the front page of the Daily Graphic newspaper a picture of one of my guests this morning, the Honorable James Agaga, the minority ranking member on the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament. And it says, Minority Ghana Bar Association concerned about armed robberies in Ghana. Government pays 2 billion to road contractors. And pictures of some young folks here who are suspects. One Michael Salifu Kwabnofori and Salami Osman. And it says, police track robbers. Arrest 4 in Koforidua and then in Accra as well. And those are the headline stories on the front page of the Daily Graphic newspaper. Daily Guide has on its front page, Kwabenya cop killers shot dead. Baumia offers security assurance and 2 donate counterfeit dollars to church. One Royal Motors daylight robber arrested, and that's Osman Salami, aka Baby, on the front page of the Daily Guide newspaper. That's by way of the headlines of the newspapers we have with us this morning on the show. You can listen to us live if you go to the Google Play Store and search for Radio Gold 90.5. You see our application there. Simply just install that application and you can monitor us anywhere in the world. So can you also monitor us live on the TuneIn application? If you search for Radio Gold 90.5, you'll find us there and you'll be able to listen to us live online as well. Check out our website, www.radiogold905.com, and you can listen to us there as well and contribute to the discourse on our website as well. We'll see it and acknowledge it as we always do. We've got affiliates all over the country who are picking the feed live. As we progress, we'll tell you some of these affiliates who are picking the feed live. So you can also tune in to those affiliates if you happen to find yourself in any of the regions in Ghana. So my guest this morning to help me do justice to the issues, Comrade Murtala Ibrahim Mohammed, former Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry, Mr. Kwesipa Jr., he's the Managing Editor of the Insight newspaper, Honorable James Agaga is the MP for Busa North Upper East region, and Dr. David Percy, student of History and Politics. And the topics for discussion is just a topic, but it's broken down into two. An analysis of the general increase in crime, especially the recent spate of armed robberies and attacks, the reaction of government, the minority in parliament, and the police reshuffle. That's the matter we are looking at this morning. So we can look at it from, the armed robberies itself, the reaction by government, the minority, and then the reshuffle that the police has done. That's the matter we are discussing the entire day today on Alhaji and Alhaji, the mother of all talk shows. Once more, I am grateful that you've tuned in to listen to the show today. My name is Samuel Shen, and I'll be your host until the show comes to an end when we hand you over to the sports team. I'll start off the conversation with the Honorable James Agaga. Honorable, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Shen, and thanks for having me. It's a privilege. I have never featured in your popular talk show, Alhaji and Alhaji. Yes, this is my very first time, so I'm honored, and to be seated here with somebody I have admired from afar so much. I was senior comrade Pratt. I should say it's a historic moment for me. Having said that, we set the ball rolling.
Yeah. You can go ahead.
The minority, as one of the major groupings in Parliament, if you like, the caucus, held a press conference to deliberate upon the security situation in the country. A lot of the time, there is the tendency to misrepresent the facts about the real situation, I mean, relative to the security of Ghana. But you see, people feel it, people can see whether there is security or insecurity. It is not for somebody to churn out statistics to justify whether or not the people have a general sense of security or insecurity. It is something that manifests itself in several respects when there is insecurity, and so there can be no pretensions at all. We have had occasion to draw the attention of the managers of security in this country, the government of President Akufo-Addo, to the state of lawlessness that were ushered into following his assumption of office. In fact, the very moment President Akufo-Addo was elected president of Ghana, identifiable vigilante groups aligned to the MPP started the assault on state institutions, and people looked on. In this country, people looked on. It took very serious-minded Ghanaians to raise or draw attention to the fact that what the political groups, vigilante groups aligned to the MPP were doing portended danger for Ghana before even the clergy and other groups, which hitherto were very vocal, took up the issue and also started talking. Now, for a whole year, this country came under siege by those political vigilante groups. The attacks are too numerous to be counted here. Toll booths were seized, toilets were seized. In some cases, certain individuals perceived to be sympathetic to the NDC were beaten to pulp. And all these things, what is instructive is that the security agencies of our state looked on helplessly. Why they looked on helplessly, I think your guess is as good as mine. The fear of victimization must have cowed even the security agencies into submission. So the general atmosphere we found ourselves in emboldened the political vigilante groups, and it was as if we're living in a state of jungle, not the country which has been touted as democratic with all the credentials. I mean, was any longer the country anybody could be proud of. So you see, vigilantism was allowed to rear its ugly head, and when you have that situation, the net result is that they grow into monsters that are difficult to contain. The result is that today we are hit hard by an increasing rate of armed robberies. There is a direct correlation, and so when we held our press conference, we sought to establish the linkage. Remember that in the run-up to the 2016 elections, the NPP brought into this country mercenaries from South Africa to train the vigilante groups in fact, tactics of war, weapon handling, etc. At that time, when we arrested the culprits and deported them, the NPP was not even ashamed of itself. They came out and mounted a spirited defense that the way and manner we had even treated those culprits was wrong, and that they came into this country legitimately to conduct legitimate business. As soon as the NPP won power, we have evidence, irrefutable evidence, to show that the mercenaries were brought back into this country and actually took part in training elements of the vigilante groups that we all know, the likes of the Invincible Forces, Delta Forces. They were given training at Esuchwari, a known military camp. Now, question to ask is, after the training, what happened to those elements? Have they been absorbed completely into the state security architecture? If they have, what are their backgrounds? Were they properly scrutinized, checked? I am not surprised to learn that in the Daily Guide publication, it appears that certain officers are being held and interrogated for adopting a certain posture when the robbery attack on Rana Motors Royal was unleashed. But that is not even the point. The point I am seeking to make is that after the training of the members of those vigilante groups, where are they? Have they all been absorbed? If you haven't absorbed them, what type of training were they given? You see, when you train people, and even weapon handling, okay, even if it's not about weapon handling, but you train people to learn how to disarm and to disengage, you place them in the position to be destructive and to be bold enough to carry out brazen attacks in the manner that we have seen. I am not too sure that all the people who have so far undergone training have been properly integrated into our security architecture. And so what is happening now is not strange at all. There is definitely a correlation between the thriving character of political vigilante groups and the rising crime rates that we are witnessing in our country. Many experts, security experts, have argued that unemployment is partly the cause of the increasing spate of armed robberies and the general insecurity situation we find ourselves in. That argument is very true. The MPP government, after all, promised Ghanaians that they were going to create jobs for the youth. In fact, that was one of the main focus of their campaign, job creation. In as much as we all don't support Galamsey, I mean, it is destructive, it destroys our river bodies, etc. The main approach in dealing with the issue of Galamsey by ensuring that alternative sources of livelihood are provided for those people who are going to be, of course, immobilized or chased out of the Galamsey business. And in fact, those were the promises the MPP made. Unfortunately, upon the assumption of office, they moved in with brute force to move people who were engaged in Galamsey out of their source of livelihoods. When you do that, what do you expect? Man must live. No matter what, man must live. And so, you see, what is happening now, in fact, even though no research has been conducted, but you don't need to be a researcher to know that when you supplant people from their sources of livelihood, they would find alternative ways of, supporting their life. Some of them have families, children. So I am of the conviction that, look, the attempt to deal with the issue of Galamsey was not properly thought out, and that has affected the security of the country. The NDC, of course, dealt with the issue of Galamsey. We also had occasion to deal with it, but our approach was more humane. Our approach was more humane. So, Eshen, I am seriously of the view that what we are witnessing now is self-inflicted. It is self-inflicted. People have talked about the fact that the security agencies themselves have not been properly resourced and that there is need to retool them. Yes, there is the need to retool them, but let us set the facts straight. Listen, the previous administration did a lot in respect of retooling the security agencies of this country in ways that are unprecedented. We did so much. Look, we're talking about police population ratio. It used to be worse. But starting from the year 2008, when the MPP lost power and Professor Mills became president, Professor Mills, having served as vice president, knew that there was the urgent need to increase the police population and to make policing a little bit easier, because you see the benchmark the UN has set is that the minimum should be one police officer policing a population of 500. So from 2008 to 2012 and 14, the police population was increased from 23,000 to about 34,000. And that brought the police to population ratio from one police officer is to 1,100, as it was in the era of President Kufuor, to 1 is to 724. So the NDC did a lot in terms of bringing up the numbers in the police service to make policing more effective in this country. Talk about logistics. Look, a lot was done for the Ghana Police Service. There's no point in equalizing, but let me tell you, look, between the same period that I am talking about, 2008 to 2012 and 14, over 1,424 vehicles of different kinds were purchased for the police service. That was why, under IGP Mohamed Al-Hassan, it was possible for the police to roll out the visibility concept. And we all saw the successes that were chalked in the fight against crime with the rollout of the visibility concept. You saw the police for once in our streets, properly dressed up with their Navara pickups. In some cases, they had tents. They were very visible. That in itself had some deterrent effect. And it went a long way to help curb crime and to reduce crime in this country. At that time, when the visibility concept was rolled out, crime rates in this country, generally in respect of the major crimes, robbery, murder, rape, came down by about 15%. And that was unprecedented. But you see, all the water cannons you see the police using today, they were all bought in that era. But you see, vehicles are vehicles. You buy a vehicle and it is exposed to the vagaries of the weather. There is general wear and tear. And so, after a certain period of time, you naturally would have to replace them. So within the period, look, let nobody deceive Ghanaians that the previous administration did nothing. Because this question has been thrown at me several times, that it was the failure of the previous administration to retool the security agencies which is responsible for the current state of affairs. And I say, no, we need to set the records straight. That is not true. In fact, today the police service is now competing with the armed forces in the area of international peacekeeping operations, because the NDC was able to introduce the formed police units in our jurisdiction, which has now made it possible for the police service to deploy in international peacekeeping missions like the military does. So all these things happened under the previous administration. So even in the face of a reduction in crime rates, the MPP when they were campaigning for office, had the guts to argue that there was a general state of lawlessness and insecurity in this country, and that if they were voted into office, they were going to ensure that there was peace and security in this country. And they largely attributed the so-called state of insecurity and lawlessness to incompetence on the part of the Mahama administration. But, Shen, what did we see? When the MPP took over the reins of governance in this country, what is the state of affairs? So, was it deception? So, whenever I take the MPP manifesto and read it and juxtapose that to what is happening now, I feel sick. Which is why, as the minority, we thought that there was a need for us to draw attention to the state of insecurity in this country, and to call upon the president, who has so far not shown leadership at all in the face of the growing insecurity in the country. One would have expected that President Akufo-Addo would have cut short his foreign travels to come back to this country, sit down with his security couples, and fashion out strategies which would at least result in security for the people of this country. Unfortunately, he is not. Look, let me give you an example. When I was at the Ministry of Interior as deputy to Honorable Kwesi Ahoy, Kwesi Ahoy took his annual leave. And you know, the convention at the ministerial level is that when the Minister for the Interior goes on leave or is indisposed, his counterpart at defense takes charge of that ministry. So the Honorable Kwesi Ahoy, for a long time, needed to rest. And that is part of the condition of service of all political appointees. So he decided to go on leave. Now, the moment he proceeded on leave, the Minister for Defense at the time, Makoyongo, took charge of the Ministry of the Interior. I was at post, I was working, and of course, reporting to the acting Minister of the Interior. So the Honorable Kwesi Ahoy, at that time, Ghana was playing in Brazil in the World Cup. He traveled to Brazil to support the Black Stars, and the media affiliated to the MPP at the time took pictures of the Honorable Kwesi Ahoy, displayed them publicly, and that became the subject of discussion. They created the impression that the Minister for the Interior was insensitive because something had happened, and that he had abandoned post. I don't remember exactly what happened at the time, but the reports in the media at the time was to the effect that he had abandoned post, and that when home was burning as minister responsible for internal security, what business did he have in Brazil? Was he the Minister for Sports? Today, we have a situation whereby the Commander-in-Chief of our armed forces is globetrotting whilst home is burning.
I thought, was it Wednesday or Thursday that one of the papers reported that he had said he was going to cut his trip short and come down?
But I am not aware whether he has come. Eshen, you are in the media. Are you aware?
I'm not aware anyway.
So you see, when you reduce politics to pettiness, we must always remember that the truth would catch up with us one day. Today, you know who is insensitive. You know who is insensitive. It's obvious. So we called upon President Akufo-Addo to return home immediately and take full responsibility. After all, it was he, Nana Addo, Ghanaians voted for as president. And so only he was elected as president. He's not indisposed. I mean, he should cut short his trip, come back home and help restore security in our country. Now, let me point out that the shake-up in the police service, I have had occasion to say that, look, it is an admission of the fact that we are in a crisis. I mean, if we are not in a crisis, why the reshuffle? Now, many people have also argued that, okay, because the IGP has found it necessary to reshuffle his men, he himself should go. And I said, no, the call is misplaced, because why should the IGP go? The failure is at the doorstep of the president. He single-handedly is the one who took the oath of office to lead this country and to ensure that the peace and security of the nation was guaranteed. So if there are problems, why reshuffle an IGP? The blame lies squarely at the doorsteps of the president. So I suggested that as head of the National Security Council, Vice President is the chairman of the Police Council, we cannot reshuffle the IGP. They are the ones who should be reshuffled. And I know at the appropriate time, the Ghanaian people would exercise their franchise and do what is necessary. I mean, in the circumstances. So, Eshen, it's worrying. You go to Tamale, and he comes from there. And within a week, 4 fuel stations had been robbed. 4 people were gunned down, dead. So, if you go to Tamale now, there is a general sense of insecurity, fear. In fact, Tamale is a very lively town. In fact, Tamale never sleeps. But for once, when I was going home to the constituency and drove through Tamale in the night, Tamale was a dead town. Everybody was indoors for fear of being attacked. Nightlife in Tamale is now dead. I mean, why is it so? You see, the armed robbers live with us. They are part of society. And so, when you create the impression that you can break the law and go free scot, they also take cues from whatever is happening and get emboldened. In those circumstances, you'd expect crime rates to increase. So in Tamale, when the Kandahar boys started attacking hospitals, chasing out chief executives, storming police stations to free party members hoodlums who had taken the law into their hands and arrested, what signal were they sending to the criminals? A culture of impunity is the order of the day. So they would also take up their guns and exact their pound of flesh. The situation in Oyibi was even more alarming. 24 robberies within a week or so. But the chilling story of the 67-year-old man who was attacked in his house, hit in the head with a stone till he started bleeding profusely without any provocation in the presence of his daughter. The man finally collapsed and died. Come to think of it, what happens to the daughter? You think the daughter can ever recover from that kind of trauma? She herself was lucky to have escaped. I mean, she was nearly raped. So, I mean, it is serious. It is a serious problem that the government must do everything within its power to reverse. If not, the climate is no longer conducive for investment. Look at what happened to the Lebanese. I mean, businessman. He goes to the bank to withdraw money. He's trailed, shot at close range, and the money taken away. What signal are we sending to the business community? That they are safe to do business in Ghana? You see, when you have insecurity, you cannot talk about, I mean, economic growth and advancement. Because a good economy can only thrive in a safe and secure environment. And that is why I call for the involvement of the military, at least as an interim measure. I haven't said, I know the dangers that are associated with deploying military personnel to perform functions that are not traditionally theirs. I know. But you see, because we're in a crisis situation, the only thing we can do in the interim to stem the problem is to fall on the military. Yes, Operation Calm Life, they scored high marks during Christmas. And what happened? What happened thereafter? We stopped seeing them. Visibility was dimmed. And so the criminals took advantage. So that was a major lapse. So yes, knee-jerk reactions, yes. An announcement was made by the Minister for Information that they have enhanced the operations of Operation Calm Life. Let us hope that in due course they are able to at least restore some sanity in the system. Otherwise, I mean, the situation is extremely alarming. So, Shen, these are my preliminary thoughts. We have had occasion to state categorically that the politicization of the police service is also partly to blame for the current state of affairs we find ourselves in. I mean, with the kinds of appointments that are made. Look, we've had celebrated officers in the past, police officers who acquitted themselves with excellence. But today it appears that some of them are, their expertise, their talents are not being exploited. Why is it so? So let us live above partisan politics when it comes to the management of security in this country. After all, crime is colorblind. When crime is perpetrated, the victims can come from any political persuasion. In fact, so far the victims those who have become victim to the armed robberies, do you know their political complexion? You don't know. And so when there are officers who can deliver, we must make good use of them, regardless of perception about where they come from, who must have promoted them, appointed them, etc. After all, if you are good at your work, why shouldn't you be promoted? And why should the fact of promotion alone in itself be used to victimize you when there is a change of government? So the police service itself, I mean, the politicians must stay clear. They must desist from manipulating the service to score political points. It doesn't help at all. So, Ishan, those would be my preliminary remarks, but I know I would have a second opportunity to dilate further on the issues.
Thank you very much, Honorable James Agaga, for your submission. Just to state that We are live on GFM Radio. Also, are we live on sapsradio.com? We are live on Tropic Radio. .uk as well, and so you can listen to us on these outlets as well. If you're out of Ghana and you're unable to monitor us on the usual platforms that you'd listen to us, but you're live on radiogold905.com. That website, very interesting, beautiful interface. So can you listen to us live if you go to the TuneIn application and search for Radio Gold 90.5, and if you go to the Google Play Store and search for Radio Gold 90.5, you will find us there. Install that application and you'll be able to listen to us. So far, lots and lots of comments coming through on Facebook and then on Twitter. I'd love to read them, but I'll come to you, Comrade Murtala, for your thoughts before I come to the text messages that have come through so far. Comrade, good morning.
Good morning, Sean, and good morning to your cherished listeners. When my brother was saying that he had the opportunity to sit with senior comrade Kwesi Pratt, I thought he was going to say, and with my client. He was my lawyer. He was my lawyer in Legon when I was impeaching my JCR president.
He didn't start today.
He didn't.
He didn't start today.
When I was impeaching my JCR president, we were in court over a year for corruption, actually, and he was my lawyer. I remember Godwin Adagwini was the opposing lawyer, and there's a gentleman, I've forgotten the name, but that is just the lighter side of it.
So you got the spirit of impeachment.
Let me say that we cannot have the issues of, discuss this issue of violence in this country. We can't discuss the armed robbery and terror acts in this country in isolation. You can't have a proper discussion of these issues without contextualizing the discussion. Let me quickly say that violence and, if you like, armed robbery didn't start under President Nanado. We have had successive governments and we have had experiences of at least selected robbery cases in this country. The difference between what we have had in the past and what we are experiencing under President Nanado is that President Nanado has perfected the act of armed robbery in this country. And I would explain why I think that he has perfected this unfortunate happening in Ghana. He has perfected it because I am yet to be told or reminded that in this country we have ever had about armed robbers numbering 15 or more that attack and rob their victims broad daylight, 15 or more. I am yet to be told or reminded that we have ever had in this country since independence 4 police officers killed at separate places and separate incidences within 1 month in the line of duty. 4 police officers. I am yet to be told or reminded that we have had an incident in this country where armed robbers broad daylight will attack a police station, free comrades, so to speak, of their own. I'm yet to be told. So we are not living in normal times. And that is why I say that you cannot have this discussion without contextualizing it. But one thing I want His Excellency the President to know, that his government will be reminded as the most dangerous governance ever perpetrated on the people of this country. And in no time, I would explain why and give justifications why I said it. I was just jotting down something. You see, we are no longer confronted with the elephant in the room. As a matter of fact, we are confronted with a monster created by no less a person than the current president, the vice president, and the MPP as a political party. And the monster is created because of the unyielding desire an unbridled desire the current president has for violence. And that monster, unfortunately, has been unleashed on the people of this country in the form of armed robbery, in the form of vigilantism, in the form of political attacks every now and then, the extent to which every single Ghanaian, you sleep now with one eye widely opened. Unfortunately, in this country, we have what are called puppets and participating citizens of this country who indeed are participating in the mad feeding of the frenzy. And these puppets and willing participants can be found in the clergy, can be found in the media, can be found among civil society groups, can be found among politicians, and can be found among ordinary Ghanaians. The extent to which anytime this government zigs, they zags. That is the true state of Ghana. Eshon, to be very honest with you, and these people are doing that because their closeness to power has trapped their sense of reasoning, that they don't have the courage to point out to the government that these things are things that can happen or are happening. Even in the eyes of all these challenges that we are all confronted with, you still find people who sit on radio and TV and say that the armed robbery we are experiencing is exaggerated. Of course, it is exaggerated. It is exaggerated because perhaps they are assured of security by the taxpayer, of course not through the approval of the taxpayer, but approval of people whose power and whose songs they sing. And I'm saying that if you look at in this country, we have never, in fact, in January 2018, we had 89 reported armed robbery cases. Reported, and experts will tell you that those ones that are not reported are more. That is 40%. We have 31 residential robbery, street robbery 43, car robbery 10, and robbery at work 5. These are not normal times. You hear people and they say, yes, we have had armed robbery before. That is why I started by saying that President Nana Ado's administration, armed robbery didn't start under his administration, but his administration has perfected armed robbery. Ishon, I said we cannot have this discussion without contextualizing it, because let's look at the concerns that were expressed by people about the possibility of the current president we have in this country becoming the president of the Republic of Ghana. Ishon, I am not creating this. I am just going to rehash or restate what people have said. People who were and are still very close to the president. We cannot discount or disregard those concerns expressed. And having looked at what people have said about the current president at the time he was vying to lead this country, I would juxtapose that with what he himself said and did, so that your listening public will make their own conclusions. I am not going to make any conclusion on this. You have a person like Mr. Kofi Kumsin, who said, I can't sleep to see Nana Ado become the president of the Republic of Ghana. By the way, Mr. Kofi Kumsin is a leading member of the NPP, the owner of Chronicle newspaper. As a matter of fact, he has never contested or attempted to contest NPP parliamentary primaries. And he has known Nana Ado longer than me and longer than most of us, perhaps except maybe Comrade Kwesi Pratt. But here, three of us except Comrade Kwesi Pratt, Mr. Kofi Kumsin has known Nana Ado longer than any of us. And he said that he will not be able to sleep that he will sleep with one eye opened to see Mr. Nana Addo become the president of the Republic of Ghana. Those who will be angry with this statement can be angry. I didn't say it. Mr. Kofi Kumsen said, and it's a public knowledge. You have Mr. Nyaho Tamaklu. That one, I saw the video and I still have it. Who said that he will not support President Nana Addo, then candidate Nana Addo, because he wants to support someone who will ensure unity and peace of this country. He said among others. He's a leading member, founding member of the NPP. And he said it. Now you have former President Kufuor, who appointed current President Nana Addo as a Minister for Foreign Affairs, appointed him as a Minister for Justice and Attorney General, who, in the run-up to the 2008 elections, before they went into to elect their Congress, met NPP functionaries in Kumasi and said something that was leaked because it was not meant for the public consumption. I've heard people who said, oh, he didn't mention names, but of course, anybody, any kid would have known that he was making references to President Nana Addo, then candidate Nana Addo. And everybody in this country, if we don't want to pretend, do know that his preferred candidate was Mr. Alan Chirmantin. And in that video, he said, if you want to elect someone to lead the NPP, elect someone who will ensure the unity and peace of this country. And he went ahead to say that don't elect someone, when you come to crowd, you will not even see the person because he's too short to be seen. Now, the hypocrites who are now saying that President Kufuor never mentioned name. At the time he made those statements, they were supporting the candidacy of President Nana Addo, attacked President Kufuor, insulted him, and he said that his statement was about the current president we have today. These are three powerful statements made about three powerful individuals within the NPP who wondered and dreaded the possibility of President Nana Addo winning elections in Ghana and becoming the president. I didn't say this. These people said that. Perhaps we need to be finding out from Mr. Kofi Kumsen why he expressed that fear. We need to be finding out from Mr. Nyaho Tamaklu why he expressed the fear. We need to be finding out from President Kufuor why he dreaded the possibility of Mr. Nana Addo becoming the president of this country. And interestingly, they all made those observations in reference to stability, peace, and unity of this country. All of them. This can't be a mere coincidence. Now, many other people made similar statements. There was also an international reputable security firm that described him as a threat to security of not just Ghana, but West Africa. It described the current President Nana Addo as a security threat. Mutala didn't say this. Those said that. WikiLeaks, it's abound all the information that we have had. The preponderous nature of this information certainly can't make it just a mere coincidence. Ishon, it can't. Now, having stated just this few of the observations that were made by people closer to the president than candidate, you cannot discount it. Perhaps we should be demanding answers from them why they made those statements. In fact, some of them went ahead to talk about the reasons. Now, these statements were not made by NDC members or leading members in NDC. These statements were made by close friends of then candidate Nana Addo. The security organization that made the observation, and they gave reasons why they thought at that time, and I believe still think, why President then candidate Nana Addo was a threat to the security of West Africa. Sean, let's take his own statement. I still remember vividly as a little boy, after the 2000 elections, in fact 1996 elections, he stated, it was 96, that if the MPP didn't win the elections, that Ghana will burn, that there will be blood. President then candidate Nana Addo, he was not the candidate. President Kufuor was the candidate, but he was a leading member of the NPP. He made that public statement. Two, Etiokura, Yechiro mu bibi kakra. Everybody knows what happened at Etio. And he said that if my understanding of the tree is proper, Yechiro mu bibi kakra. We show them something small. Is that not it? Now, take all die be die. The statement was not pushed out of his mouth. He made that statement and went ahead to talk about the fact that yes, this is what is happening. We are not going to allow those things to happen. These were the statements. Again, in 2012 elections, you had the same president who lost an elections. And they said, oh, he was a very peaceful person. He went to Supreme Court. As if we are a bunch of idiots in this country. They vandalized, destroyed vehicles that had JM posters on them. They gathered at Opera Square. They beat people. And I still remember the accounts of a gentleman who went and picked his kid from school. They vandalized the vehicle, and the man stated a year after that the child is still traumatized. It was when they did all those things at Opera Square, did everything they did, and realized that they had no option, then they went and held that press conference and demanded they were going to court. And suddenly, this hypocritical section of the Ghanaian media wanted to push it down our throat that yes, President Nanado, then candidate Nanado, was a very peaceful man, that he lost an elections as if he had a choice. He lost an elections, he didn't do anything, he went to the Supreme Court. Suddenly, they refused to tell us what he engaged earlier. He engaged in earlier before he decided to go to the Supreme Court. And even at the press conference they held, they threatened everybody. Ezelosu threatened virtually everybody except herself. Again, you have leading members of the party who made threatening statements. Canada, Japan is a classical example. At no point in time did the president then candidate raise a finger. Sean, let me just cut it short and come to events prior to the 2016 elections. You have a president who said, I don't have confidence in the Ghana police, as a justification to the formation of these terror groups. Let me state this unequivocally, that the Delta Force, the invisible forces, and all the terror groups were provided, created, aided, and financed by President Nanado, and they are still financed at the Flagstaff House. If they are not financed at the Flagstaff House, they should come out and disband them. You have leading members of the MPP, a classical example, and I have listened to the acting general secretary of the MPP on 2 occasions, and he said that they won't disband those groups. They are their members. Go and read the AU Convention of the Prevention of Terrorism and tell me whether Delta Force, Invisible Forces, Bulgar Bulldogs, mention them, they are not terror groups. They are. They are all terror groups, perfectly so. Now, tell me, you appointed your regional security coordinator. The terror groups that you provided, trained, and aided went and beat this man to pulp. Now, those people were arrested after Ghanaians demanded their arrest. You went to court and finally what we were told was nolle prosequi, isn't it? Only for the Minister of Justice and Attorney General, without any shame, unashamedly, came out to tell us that we could not proceed with the case because the gentleman who was beaten to pulp was not willing to give evidence. Isn't it? Yet that same gentleman is still at post. I mean, I can't believe this. Criminal cases are not cases handled by private citizens. Criminal cases are cases handled by what? The state. Now, if you meant well, and now that person refused to give evidence, and then videos were made available. Look, I said, before they even came out with it, I said, look, the processes leading to the prosecution was fraudulently procured. Even the videos that the state provided as evidence for the arrest of those engaged in that, They went and arrested people who were not found in the video. So I have an issue, you go to court, even if you want to use the video as evidence. The people you brought before us were not in the video. So it was fraudulently procured. Sean, assume that me and my brother came here and did something. People captured this on video. Now Ghanaians are demanding that arrest us. Then they go and bring Honorable Suyini and Honorable Ablakwa, who were nowhere here, use that as evidence in court. You think they won't throw the case away? That was what they did. That was no wonder the president said he doesn't have confidence in the Minister for Justice and Attorney General. Because Mr. Martinami said this. Have justice in the Minister of Justice and Attorney General. Because people don't have confidence in them. So you do that and you go to court. So it's a case of garbage in, garbage out. Now, assuming without admitting that the man refused to come forward to give evidence, what do? You sack him. But the man is still at post. But he said, no, I'm not prepared. I don't care. The Minister of Justice and Attorney General will come out and tell us this. So, Sean, you cannot discuss these issues in isolation. It will be incomplete when you insulate the character of the person whom 53% of Ghanaians were hoodwinked into giving the mandate. You can't do that. Have I created anything here? Every single statement I made on this issue, I am reporting what people said and what His Excellency the President himself said. I agree with my brother when he said that those who are calling for the reshuffle or the resignation of the IGP may not be fair to the IGP. Perhaps the person we should be reshuffling is the President and the Vice President. Because the Vice President is the chairman of the security, whatever, the police council. A Vice President who claims some people were so incompetent. He was the paragon of knowledge. How more embarrassing could this be? Once again, when we were reading one of the papers, he said, oh, they would do what? They would end the armed robbery. Sean, in this country, so I agree that yes, we should, but in serious democracies, the IGP would have resigned. He would have resigned. If he had some pride and honor in him, he would resign. Because if the appointing authority is unwilling, why? You can't be an IGP where people are being killed every single day, police officers are killed every single day, military officers are killed. There is a complete security decay in this country, and you still have the honor to be at post. So if the president, if he won't resign, then the president should have forced him to jump. And the people of this country have the responsibility and the moral duty to get this government out, and that we should start working towards 2020 now. It is not an NBC's issue, because when the criminals come, they don't select. When the criminals come, they don't select. So, Sean, do you not understand why I say you cannot discuss this issue without contextualizing it? Assuming 10% of what we are experiencing today happened under President Mahama. Assuming the multimedia would have had fora created to lambast this government, why are they silent? Why aren't they interested in it? Why is that puppet group of the clergy not talking? Why are they not interested in this? Where are the civil society groups, the doyens and protectors of democratic and constitutionalism? Where are they? Why are they not interested in it? Look, I was in Tamale. I came from Tamale just 4 or 5 days ago. I was shocked what I observed in Tamale. That Tamale, where people could go about their normal duties every single day, the first thing I saw in the evening was police checkpoints, and I commend the police for that. Tamale, we didn't need this. So when you are in extreme realities, you need extreme resolutions. So if you are living in Tamale, you left Tamale and then you came in and you started seeing police checkpoints, then it tells you that we are not living in normal times. The extent to which there were recorded armed robbery cases in Tamale during the day. This is unheard of. We cannot also discuss this without talking about the influx of foreigners, particularly Nigerians. Let's stop pretending. Look, I am absolutely for borderless, free movement of people, because that is what Pan-Africanism is all about. But I really don't think that you do and accept Pan-Africanism and borderless, sub-region or continent without responsibility. There are a lot of Nigerians in Ghana who are doing legitimate businesses and are contributing towards the revenue generation of this country, contributing towards the development and the growth of Ghana. There are a lot of them. But let us also admit that there are a lot of Nigerians also who are in Ghana who are engaged in crime. And there is evidence to this. The preponderous nature of criminals who are arrested, and many Nigerians are found among them, should be a worry to all of us. Look, I have very good Nigerian friends and who have told me, look, Honorable, it hurts us that those of us who are here doing legitimate businesses, few people who come in, engage inside crime, are causing a lot of disaffection, disillusionment between us on one hand, legitimate Nigerians and other foreigners in Ghana, and the Ghanaian authorities. So my call to them is that they have a responsibility to fish out those suspected individuals among their foes. Look, when we say free movement of people, free movement of goods and services, the framers of the ECOWAS treaty didn't do that without taking into consideration that they were talking about responsible movement of people. I really don't think that they would have said that any criminal in Ghana can go to Nigeria and commit crime, or any criminal in Nigeria can come to Ghana and commit crime. When they talk about free movement of people, goods and services, to a very large extent they are talking about the movement of people who would ensure deepening and profound cohesion between and among ethnic groups living in these countries. And Sean, between Ghana and Nigeria, the reasons why I think that the issue is about Nigeria and not about Ivory Coast, not about Togo, not about other places, is because every single Nigerian, you feel more comfortable in Ghana than in Togo, than in Benin. Every single Ghanaian, you will feel more comfortable in Nigeria than in Togo and Benin, because the language itself is a problem. That's one. Two, you have huge numbers of Nigerians, Nigerian-born Ghanaians who are in Ghana, legitimately who are Ghanaians, because you are Ghanaian by law or by birth. There are a lot of Nigerians here. Look, you have a huge population of Hausa population in Ghana who have lived in Ghana long before independence. We have a huge population of Yorubas in Ghana who have lived in Ghana long before independence. I always make reference to Alhaji Gbadamoshi, Dr. Sule Garba and co. Their parents' descendants were from Nigeria. Alhaji Gbadamoshi became the leader of the Dagbang youth because he was more a Dagomba than even the Gombes. So we have had this symbiotic relationship. Now you have a lot of people who come in there. They are not coming to engage in legitimate businesses. They are coming to engage in crime. We have had our past experiences. Ghana must go, and the Aliens Compliance Order. And I really don't think that what we experienced in the 1969 and the 1987, where you had Nigerians and foreigners, because when they say foreigners, majority of them within the sub-region who live in Ghana are Nigerians. Where you had them forcefully, they were asked to leave this country, and where in 1987 Nigeria also had to what? Retaliate. Because anytime there are challenges, economic deprivation and challenges in Ghana, you would find Ghanaians moving to Nigeria. Not much in Togo or in Ivory Coast and other places. And anytime you experience same in Nigeria, you find a lot. And in fact, the extent to which you realize that people feel uncomfortable and unsafe in Ghana or in Nigeria on the basis of security, you would find them moving to these countries. Now, if there were people who moved from Nigeria to Ghana, settled in Ghana, some of them transact businesses here because they felt that they were not that safe in Nigeria. And now you have elements who are engaged in crime who have transported the crime to Ghana, and Ghana too is not safe. Where are they going to go? So I think that there is the need for some collaboration between the Ghanaian, particularly the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Trade and Industries, and the Nigerian High Commission, and the High Commission and ambassadors within the sub-region who live here. I remember when I was the Deputy Minister for Trade, on the issue of this trade thing, I had series of meetings with the Nigerian High Commission at that time. So I had a lot of interactions with the Nigerian chiefs here, who all expressed this concern that yes, a lot of our countrymen come to this country, they are engaged in things that are tarnishing our image, and it is not in our interest. So the earlier something is done about it, the better. Let me make this point. When we were here, and then they were repatriating Ghanaians from Libya, the state felt that they were doing us a lot of good. They got a flight. The flight went there, all Ghanaians, because they were killing black Africans. Bring them home. They just brought them home. At the airport, they lined up buses. You come out from the plane, they give you a bag and 400 Ghana cedis. You enter inside the bus. This bus is full. They go, all of them discharge them at what's the name? Circle, and then take the bus to you wherever you are coming from. And I said, I watched this on TV. They carried it on some of the TV stations live, and I asked myself, who is in charge of this country? Who is in charge of the security of this country? Because we had reports that there were Ghanaians who were recruited by ISIS in Libya. We had palpable evidences. Some lost their lives, and some of them, their families admitted that yes, their children were engaged in it. There was a case of a student from KNUST, and the family had to report to the police. They were communicating with their son, and the son admitted to them that he had joined ISIS. There were a lot of reports to that effect. Now they started killing black Africans. You send a flight, these people are brought home. The possibility of some of them being members of ISIS was there. Some went there to move to Europe and other places. So as a responsible government, and a government that thinks positively about the safety and the security of this country, when you brought them, the Ministry of Interior should have been involved, the National Security should have been involved, the Police CID should have been involved, even if it meant holding these people for 3, 4, even 1 week. Provide them with decent accommodation, provide them with feeding, scrutinize them, and you'll be able to identify those genuinely who went to Libya as a transit to go to Europe and other places. They didn't do that. They just brought them, unleashed them. What if there is that possibility? More so when we have had reports of even refugees who are leaving Syria and other places and Libya to Europe, that ISIS unleashed some of their members. And we have had reports where some of ISIS members have attacked some countries, and they went to those countries as refugees. This incompetent government didn't see the need to do that. So clearly, either the president doesn't know his left from his right as far as the security of this country is concerned, or those he has appointed, giving them the responsibility to ensure our safety and protection, do not know what they are about, or simply they don't give the president the right advice, or perhaps they want to see this country on its needs. I don't want to believe that they genuinely would want to see this country on its needs. I only want to believe that they are absolutely incompetent. Eshon, before the elections, the president himself, his statement, as an approval to the training of these terror groups, said they didn't have confidence in the police. Do we know the number of invisible forces and Delta forces who were trained? No. Do we know where they were trained from? No. Do we know the kind of training that was given to them? No. Do we know what kind of information, the psyche that was given to them? We do not know. We do not know. The robbery in which the Lebanese man was killed, I am told that they were driving a 4-wheel. Now, have we asked ourselves, the 200 vehicles, the 200 perhaps majority of which were 4 wheels, that this government claimed that the NDC government took from the Flagstaff House, who turned out to be absolutely false? Do we know the whereabouts of those four-wheel vehicles? We don't know. So they are not interested in exposing NDC, that at the Flagstaff House, NDC will come and take 200 four-wheel cars, and they don't want to talk about it. The reason why they don't want to talk about it is that those four-wheel cars were taken by members of these terror groups. And know what happened? I am told that during the swearing in, they went there to take some cars to pick people. When they realized that you just pick a car, boom, any car that opens, you go and pick. They should be telling us the whereabouts of those four wheels. What is the possibility, or couldn't there be a possibility that some of those people can use this vehicle to engage in crime? That they drive with Gota phones? I listened to Honorable Mustafa Hamid, and part of the measures that this government is putting in place, that people cannot use sirens. Throughout I served as a Deputy Minister of State, Eshon, I have never used a siren, never. Never. I drive traffic, I will be in the traffic till I get to where I'm going. I never. And the only times that I realized I sat in a car that siren was used was when we were going to Pediasi Lodge. All of us were in a bus with a motorbike. I have never. Today, you find demagogues parading the corridors of the Flagstaff House. They use sirens. They enter through, illegal routes. Look, you from Christ the King. If you are coming to Flagstaff House, I was going for a program in the morning at TV3. I got there. There was this vehicle. There were two vehicles just in front of me. I was the third vehicle. Another vehicle just came. He couldn't wait. He passed through where the vehicles that are coming from 37 coming, passed, they blocked everybody. Some demagogues in that vehicle, not ministers, not nothing, brandishing their Gota left, right, and center. That is the true state of this country. Right. That is the true state of this country. Look, I use the East Legon Tunnel every morning. You come there, you find people, they drive vehicle, they come, they allow them to go, sirens. And I think that the earlier something that, so they should stop this. They should stop deceiving the people of this country. Every single thing you do in this country, whether free SHS, the debunked one district, one factory, mention them, and security is zeal, you have done nothing. And the sad aspects of this government is that they seem not to get anything right. They are not getting the economy right. They are not getting social issues right. They are not getting governance right. And the least one would expect that they don't get right is the stability and peace of this country. So my sincere appeal to His Excellency President Nana Addo and Dr. Bawumia is that yes, we know you have failed in the economic front. We know you have failed in providing the basic needs of the people of this country. We know you have failed in ensuring that you implement the policies that you promised you are going to do. We know you have reneged on the responsibilities and promises that you have made. We are pleading with you. We are pleading with you that protect the peace and safety of this country as the NDC handed it over to you, so that 2020, the people of this country who can no longer wait, who are working and praying anxiously that we see the back of your incompetent, corrupt government, at least if you can provide these things, ensure that you don't, even if you can improve the security situation in this country, but at least maintain it. If this government can't do anything, but they should maintain the peace and sanctity of this country, so that 2020 we get them out and restructure this country. It doesn't take anybody to do that. It takes the connivance of the security agencies. It takes the zeal and the determination of the security agencies to ensure peace. And I can tell you, the IGP and the police service, I believe they have the capacity to ensure safety in this country, but their hands are tied. When you have a leading member of the Ghana Police Service who publicly stated that their inability to do certain things is political interference, it tells you there is a worry.
Thank you very much, Comrade Murtala Mohammed. for your submission. That brings us to some 15 minutes to the top of the hour. 11 here on your power station, Radio Gold 90.5 FM. If you're just showing us, you missed the submission of the Honorable James Agaga. That was the tail end of the submission of Comrade Murtala Ibrahim Mohammed. I will come to Mr. Kwesipra Jr. in a bit, but you can listen to us live on Sekpele 104.3 in Lekpe, on Radio Kwando 102.5 in Kwando, Lukusi Radio 96.1 in Vetgolo Kwati Shine, FM 96.9 in Akachi GFM Radio in London, and also monitor us live on RadioGold905.com. There will be a repeat broadcast of this program on Wednesday after 9, so you can tune in and listen. Also, can you listen to all the Alhaji and Alhaji shows, I believe from last year, November or so, on YouTube? If you go and search for the channel Q Media, Q as in the letter Q, Media on YouTube. Just search for Radio Gold, Alhaji and Alhaji, and you can listen to all the shows that were done from last year till date. Let me go through a few of the text messages I had before. I'll hand you over to Mr. Kwesipa Jr. for his views. This one from Tony says, I suggest some state institutions should be exempted from casting their vote. One, the police service, the judiciary, soldiers, and other security services, just like what Nkrumah did. That's your contribution. This one from Hadi from Pig Farm says, good morning, my brother. Did I hear no police protection, aka the NPP, saying that they are not happy with the way people are playing politics with robbery issues? I laugh enter Dome Kwabenya SHS. You see how hot it feels when such blame are put on government. You people play politics with everything that happened during the era of His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama. Now you see how hot it feels. Stop the nagging and deal with the robbery menace. That's from Hadi from Pig Farm. This one says, why is anyone expecting this IGP to resign? Even when he was implicated in that omnibus cocaine case, did he resign from the police force? Of course. We should be blaming the past governments that did not sack him from the police service, including the immediate past NDC administration that took everything for granted and have landed us where we are today. That's from Obey, sending that through. This one here says, good morning, Mr. Station. Please, do you know that now we have invisible forces wearing white shirt and black coat and directing traffic on this hot sun at the Osu Castle Junction? That's the 28th February crossroad. Okay, I have not taken notice of that. You brought my attention to that. I will try and look at that. This one from Professor Kwame Aristocrat. You said, please tell Comrade Murtala that the current IGP has no better record to man our security system. He was a CID under Kofo with Nanado as Foreign Affairs Minister, who investigated the MV Benjamin cocaine saga that turned into Kokonte under 24/7 CCTV cameras. Now he's working with Tiwa Dankwa as CID, who was promoted by the same Nanado after covering the two Chief of Staff, Flagstaff House gate fees corruption. How can the nation fight crime and robbery with these two people? It's like telling the monkey to investigate the gorilla over a missing banana. That's from Prekese Kwame Aristocrat, sending that through. Prekese, I understand your Facebook account has been blocked again. Some of the comments you put on Facebook, why won't they block you? They will certainly block you. And those are a few of the messages that have come through. I see lots and lots of messages coming through. I will take the time to go through all of these text messages, both on Twitter and then on Facebook. So kindly do stay with us. I'll come straight to Mr. Kwesipra Jr. for his thoughts on the matter we are dealing with today, which has to do with the analysis of the general increase in crime, especially the recent spate of armed robberies and attacks, the reaction of governments, the minority in parliament, and the police reshuffle. Uncle Kwesi, good morning. Okay, all right. Let me shift this one to you so that you can use this one. Okay, all right. I think finally even came. Yeah.
Well, as we speak in the studio, the mortal remains of Inspector Ashilevi are being laid to rest. And the kind of funeral we give to Inspector Ashilevi and how we take care of matters that he leaves behind will be a huge statement about our commitment to fighting crime. You know, not too long ago, a police officer was shot at Abekan, La Paz. I happened to live just one wall away from this police officer's house. And every day, I see the difficulties that his wife and children have to go through. Indeed, 2 to 3 weeks ago, 2 of his children fell sick. And I know the pain that this woman had to endure in order to take care of 2 sick children. I've always cited the example of the Nima police station, where nobody, no police officer, keeps his fridge or deep freezer in a room. And if you go to the Nima barracks, you find all refrigerators and deep freezers outside the rooms, because they simply do not have enough space in the rooms to sleep. These are police officers who have children, who are married. And you can imagine the extent to which the conditions of life, their conditions of life, will promote child delinquency. They sleep in the same room with their children, 12-year-old children, 15-year-old children, 16-year-old children. I mean, this is radio. I cannot say everything. But you can imagine how the conditions of life of police officers will lead to the destruction of their children and so on. I think it's important for us to show some commitment to the men and women who have to risk their lives to protect us, to the men and women who stand in the rain at night so that you and I can have peaceful sleep, the men and women who devote their lives to ensuring that we can go about our duties without let or hindrance. The conditions of the policemen and women who are supposed to do this work is simply appalling, clearly unacceptable. I don't think that we can expect much from a neglected police service, from policemen and women whose daily lives, look, policemen and women are just like us. They're just like us. There's no difference. They have to eat. They have to drink water. They have to wear clothes. They have to pay school fees and so on. And their conditions dictate the quality of work that they can do. And I think it's important that we pay attention to some of these things. Now, yesterday morning, I got a copy of the Dispatch newspaper, and I read a news report on page 2 of the Dispatch newspaper. It happened to have been a reproduction of an interview that an ex-police officer granted TV3. And I was indeed horrified. Master, according to this senior retired police officer, in many of our police stations, even in the capital city, Accra, you'll be lucky to find one efficient gun, one efficient gun in a whole police station. You understand? Read the Dispatch of yesterday. Now, this police officer also disclosed that the weapons that they have, that is where you can find an efficient gun, the weapons were bought in 1990. So you are talking about weapons which are 28 years old. That's what they have to confront the armed robbers with. That is what they have to protect us with. Now, look at the weapons that the armed robbers have been using over the period. And look at the weapons that are described, you know, by this former police officer. It's absolutely important in the struggle against crime, especially armed crime, as in armed robbery. And I was talking about a report in the Daily Dispatch of yesterday, page 2 of the Daily Dispatch yesterday. Happened to have been an interview that a senior police officer granted TV3. And this senior police officer simply said that you'll be lucky to find one efficient gun in some of the police stations. That indeed, if you go to some of the police stations, you only find one efficient gun. And the guns that the police use were actually procured in 1990. So policemen are using guns which are 28 years old in the fight against crime. And he gave other details. I mean, not long ago, when all of us noticed that the police visibility project was losing steam, we started asking questions. And one of the things that we were told was simply the fact that the police service did not have money to buy petrol. Petrol. They did not have money to buy petrol. You know, I recall that under Inspector General Al-Hassan and National Security Coordinator Beblolate, the police saw a lot of innovation. There was a time when it was decided that you needed policemen on foot patrol. So you saw those policemen with blue helmets who were walking the corridors and so on of Accra with batons and so on. And then there were policemen who were on bicycles. And then there were policemen who were on motorbike patrols. And then policemen who had Nissan patrol vehicles for patrol and so on. And then there were the police armored vehicles which were brought in from South Africa and so on. And policing improved tremendously under Professor John Evans Atta Mills. I recall that just before Professor John Evans Atta Mills assumed office, we could not buy petrol after 6 p.m. because of the spate of armed robberies. Indeed, within a year or two of his assumption of office, petrol was sold throughout the day. You could buy petrol at midnight and so on. And that was the result of work which was done in equipping the police service, in changing the way in which we saw policemen and so on. It was also the result of a special effort to take care of the welfare needs of police personnel. I recall that in that period, police salaries were more than doubled and so on. And perhaps this would explain why the spate of armed robbery was curbed as quickly as it was done in those days. But you see, the statistics are also extremely worrying. As a matter of fact, between January and now, in a period of only 2 months, reported cases of armed robbery are 89. More than the total reported cases for 2017 and 2016. Very, very frightening. Last week or 2 weeks ago, I had representatives of the Association of Operators of Forex Bureau in Accra complain. And in this same 2-month period, there have been 20 armed robberies in Forex Bureaus alone. And then there have been the incidents of armed robberies involving mobile money transfers. And I'm being told that yesterday in the north, there was another robbery involving a mobile money transfer, unit and so on. So the statistics are alarming. If in 2 months you are getting figures which exceed total yearly figures for 2016 and 2017, you must sound the alarm bells. You ought to be frightened. It is frightening and so on. Now again, the manner in which the armed robbery operations are carried out is also substantially different from our experiences in the past. I'm told of a robbery in a private residential area which involved 18 armed men. And that's really frightening. I mean, what does it take to convince and organize 18 people to rob one house? I mean, really frightening. If it's 1 or 2, 4 people engaged in a robbery, it is bad. It is very, very bad. It causes the same panic and so on. But if it's 18 people, it suggests a very high level of organization. And indeed, those who reported this robbery indicated that when the robbers arrived at the premises, 8 of them went inside the house to carry out the operation, and 10 of them surrounded the house to provide protection for those who were in the house and so on. I mean, highly organized. What has happened for us to experience this very high level of organization in the last 2 months? What is so special about the last 2 months for us to witness this level of sophistication, this level of mobilization, and this level of organization? There's a question that we need to try to answer. Now again, I think there's no doubt, and I've heard all those who have been talking about this spate of armed robbery emphasize the point that you need a professional police service, to bring about some level of efficiency in the effort to combat crime, especially armed robbery. There's a huge emphasis on professionalism. Now, how can we have a professional police service when indeed the leaders of the service have no security of tenure? I don't know how we can have such a professional police service. Every IGP understands very clearly that his term of office is coterminous to the term of office of a particular president. And this has been the case since 1993. Anytime there's a new president, there's a new Inspector General of Police. And indeed, even for some of the senior ranks below him, there's no security of tenure. So top police officers know that if a government falls, they fall with the government. So why wouldn't they do everything possible to ensure that the government in power stays in power? Why would this not lead to over-politicization of the police service? Now, I've been trying to find out why we think it is so important to provide security of tenure for the Chief Justice, for the chairperson of Shiraj, for the chairperson of National Commission on Civic Education and so on, but not provide security of tenure for the head of the armed forces, for the head of the police service, for the head of fire service, and for the head of the prison service. So if you are to depoliticize these institutions, it's absolutely important that we take steps to ensure that the leadership of these institutions are not political agents or agents of political parties. And the only way to do that is to guarantee a certain security of tenure for the top people in these services and so on. Now again, when it comes to recruitment, we should not delude ourselves, we should not deceive ourselves. Everybody knows that recruitment into the police service, the armed forces and so on is done on purely partisan basis. Everybody knows that. I mean, the phenomenon of party police emerged in the Kufuor era. And it was not just about the Kufuor era, it has been the same story all the time. If the NDC is in power, NDC, a lot more NDC people get recruited into the police service. If NPP is in power, a lot more NPP people get recruited into the police service and so on. To the extent that if you go into the police service now, you will find people, servicemen and women, who openly identify themselves with political parties. So how can you have an efficient professional police service when recruitment into that service is dictated by party affiliation? We need to change that whole system. You understand? Not long ago, I heard a minister on radio boasting about how many of his people he's been able to push into the immigration service, to push into the police service and so on. It's become a badge of honor for leading politicians to be able to influence recruitment into these services. Now, I've spoken to some police officers, serving and retired. And one of their major worries has to do with the fact that they've lost control over recruitment. And that criteria for recruitment is not being met any longer. I mean, there are even physical attributes that people overlook. I mean, they will tell you, for example, that you cannot recruit flat-footed persons into the service because of the boots they wear and some exercises they have to undertake and so on. Now you go into the police service and there are flat-footed people in the service. Because it doesn't matter. Your physical attributes don't matter anymore. You understand? What matters is your party card. And it's important that we, examine these things and take steps to correct them. Now again, we are told, and I think it is true, that crime has become a cross-border phenomena. Many of the armed robbers who have been arrested have come from other West African countries. Indeed, when other West African countries have also carried out operations against armed robbery, Ghanaians have participated in robberies there and so on. So the robbery gangs are not Ghanaian, they are West African. Now this would call for a cross-border approach or a regional approach to fighting crime. Now I don't know to what extent we are cooperating with the security services of Togo, Benin, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia, and so on in combating crime. I don't know. This normally would not be public information. But we can say with emphasis that if armed robbery has become a cross-border phenomena, then we need to adopt a regional approach in tackling, these measures and so on. And I don't know what the facts are. Whatever the facts are, the emphasis ought to be on finding a regional approach, to the solution. Now, my brother, having said all of this, armed robbery is not a new phenomena. It's old. I mean, I've spoken about the period before Professor Mills assumed office and what was done and so on. So there ought to be people who have been involved in this fight against armed robbery. What are we doing with the human capital that we have? What are we doing with all of those who have proved successful in combating armed robbery? One name which comes to mind immediately is Lieutenant Colonel Bevlo Latte, former National Security Coordinator. The record shows that when he was National Security Coordinator, crime went down. You understand? There's a former IGP, Mr. Al-Hassan, and so on. So we know the people who have a record, who speaks volumes about the fight against crime and so on. Now, what is preventing us from seeking permission from the AU where Lieutenant Colonel Bevlo Latte now works, for him to come home for 6 months and assist in shaping a policy, in shaping a strategy for combating armed robbery? What should prevent us? If we are not overly politically partisan, why can't we bring him down to come and assist? I've said this before, and some of my friends were very, very unhappy with me, but it's a fact. I recall the days when Rose Biotinga was the regional police commander. And there was one particular incident which pleased me so much. You remember the robbery at East Legon? Now, before the armed robbers arrived in the house, the police was already in the house waiting for them. You remember that one? I mean, that showed the extent to which the police used intelligence to anticipate the robbery and to deal with it in the niche of time and so on. I mean, this woman, she used to bear weapons herself and to lead her forces into direct combat with robbery. And indeed, it's a fact that during her tenure as Greater Accra Regional Commander, armed robbery came down significantly. Of course, the rules say that when you reach a certain age, you have to go home. So she's reached that age, she has rightly gone home. But does that mean that we cannot pick her brain? Does that mean that we cannot bring her into some specialized committee or something to assist? Every citizen must be made use of when there's a national crisis. So where is Rose Bio Atinga? Where is she? Why are we not using such people in order to combat crime? DCPO Yohonu, is that his name? Yes. I think so. Tete Yohonu. I mean, we used to interact with him quite a bit when he was Greater Accra Regional Commander. He's also one person whose record was impressive. Where is he now? I don't know. You understand? Now, we are told that the Inspector General of Police has carried out some reassignments. And I looked at the reassignments. I said, what is this? What is this? Look, one policeman who has been treated so very unfairly is Commissioner of Police Dampare. I mean, I don't know what this man has done to his superiors. In 2 to 3 years, this man has been transferred almost 4 times. Why? He was first special aide to the Inspector General of Police. Then, bam, he was moved from there to Greater Accra Regional Command, to assume the Greater Accra Regional Command. Then, bam, he was moved from there to Winneba, to the training school. Then, bam, he was moved to operations. And then he has been moved from operations now to research. 5 transfers in 2 to 3 years. What has he done? I mean, look, anytime you move somebody from one place to the other, especially when it means moving physically from a station, you destabilize the person. You understand? So there ought to be very good reasons for these transfers. Otherwise, you mess the police officers up. And I don't know what Commissioner Dampare has done. Why they are tossing him up and down, left, right, and center, and so on. I can't understand it. So this, and indeed, this is what shows that throwing people up and down, east, south, and west, and so on, does not solve the problem. Because if transfers were the problem, this Inspector General of Police has carried out more than 3 major reshuffles since he assumed office less than 2 years ago. And yet, the situation is getting worse. With each reshuffle, the situation gets worse. So reshuffles are not the problem. You understand? Now, I heard the press conference first by the Inspector General of Police himself, and some of the things he said are very, very true. He spoke about the handicap that the police service has in terms of equipment and so on, logistics, welfare matters and so on. They are all very true. And then this has been followed by press conferences by politicians, including my good friend Mustafa Hamid and so on. And then we are told that they are going to buy helicopters for the police. They want to impress us. They are going to buy helicopters for policemen who do not have boots. Look, you go to the back of the police headquarters where they repair their vehicles and see the number of broken down vehicles. The police are telling you that they don't have money to buy petrol to put into their vehicles. And what you're going to do is to buy helicopters for them. If you can't repair Nissan Navaras, how can you maintain helicopters? I mean, sometimes these people, when they talk, you just wonder, what do they take us for? Nissan Navaras, they are broken down, you can't repair them. You can't buy petrol for Nissan Navaras, but you are going to buy helicopters. I suppose that the helicopters, you put water in them. You connect hose to pipes and water pipes and fill them. Why do they think that if they tell us they are going to buy helicopters, we'll jump into the skies and start dancing, singing hallelujah and so on? So unrealistic. It's unbelievable. Simple things. The concept of community policing was introduced some time ago. What has happened to community policing? And it's a very good idea. It worked in many countries and so on. What has happened to the concept of community policing? Simple logic, simple thinking, simple analysis will solve some of the problems which confront us. And last week I was really amazed. Wow! Sometimes reading Ghanaian newspapers is a source of huge entertainment. Last week what I read? Last week I read that we were assuring President Donald Trump that we would assist him to fight terrorism. Hey! You read it. Why are you saying that you don't know what I'm talking about?
Well, I didn't know initially where you were going with the story.
Because last week we were busy assuring Donald Trump and promising him that he shouldn't worry at all. Ghana will help him to fight terrorism. You can't fight 2x4 armed robberies. You are not going to assist the United States to fight terrorism. What is wrong with us? Why big talk? Empty talk. Empty big talk. It's not helping us at all. You understand? And then I started raising some questions. Many people started raising some questions. And I found some answers. But unfortunately, I got those answers in a manner which disables me from disclosing it publicly. You understand? Many people have just been wondering why some police personnel are deliberately being kept out of action. And I think it's a legitimate question. A lot of people have asked the question why Mr. Kofi Buachi is sitting at PIPS. Why? because everybody knows that he's a transformational police officer. I mean, it's the quality of his work. It's before the public. I mean, just walk out of Radio Gold now and ask anybody on the street who police officer he thinks will be able to handle armed robbery and so on. And they'll mention Kofi Boakye. I have to be careful not to be unfair to him and also to the police service. You know. He hasn't done anything wrong. Don't get me wrong. Kofi Boakye hasn't done anything wrong. But I'm told that it appears that he's not in a position to carry out certain duties. This is the information I got yesterday. But if that is the case, given the public clamor for engaging him on something, the police must find a way of explaining why he has not been given that responsibility. Because the public is getting angry. I've heard many people on radio very angry that why is this man there and there is no, you know, he's not being deployed to do the things that he knows how best to do and so on. In any case, I think it's a huge problem that when it comes to the fight against armed robbery, everybody is talking about Kofi Boakye, one officer. We should have replicated that officer in many forms. It's just like the fight against corruption. You mention corruption, you say, oh, if Martin Amidu is there, then we are fine. Martin Amidu is a human being. Even Jesus the Christ died at some point. You understand? So if you build a system based on the availability of one person, that system is bound to collapse. So we should be asking ourselves, what is it that went into the making of Kofi Boakye as a police officer that the public has confidence in? What elements can we introduce into police training which will create 3, 4, 5 Kofi Boakyes and so on? You see, Massa, I've heard a lot of people call for the resignation of the Inspector General of Police. Many people clamoring for his resignation. I think to some extent, the calls for the resignation of the IGP are unfair. I will explain that. You see, if you look at the facts and so on, we cannot help but agree that we are not building a professional police service. We are not. Now, if you are not building a professional police service, and the IGP is there or not there at the whim of a political party, no matter who you put there, the person will have serious problems. So we need to look at things from that perspective. Now, I think also that it's important for us to recognize what everybody can bring to the table and make the best use of that. And from the little background check that I have done, Inspector General Apietu happens to be a police forensic expert of international repute. I mean, I hear his record in Interpol is impeccable and so on. Everybody knows him as a forensic expert and so on. Now, the fact that he's IGP today does not make him the best operational person you can get. So what we need to do is that if you look at the police structure and you have such a distinguished police officer as Inspector General of Police, what is it that you can add to him at the helm so that operations will be strengthened, so that intelligence will be strengthened, and so that research would also be strengthened? So that all the departments of the police service will be strengthened, including the department that is supposed to be a world-renowned expert in, and so on. This is the question that we have to answer, you understand? Now, interestingly, our constitution provides or allows our vice president, Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, to superintend the police council. So this matter is in his court. You understand? And I think it would be a great pity if Dr. His Excellency Alhaji Bawumia is unable to resolve this matter. No, I mean it, I'm serious. Because 2 years ago, this was Mr. Know-all. He knew everything. He had answers for everything and so on. I mean, he's the brain box. Now he's in power. Police duties have been assigned to him. Please wake up, because it does your reputation no good if this thing persists. I mean, this morning I'm reading the newspapers, and I've seen pictures of His Excellency Dr. Alhaji Bawumia. So why are you laughing? With the chief imam, and he went to the Busokan Mosque yesterday to announce that all will be well. Please, let all be well. We are waiting. You understand? Yeah. You all recall statements that you made in opposition, but all of us know that talk does not always lead to action. What is happening now is a very, very serious matter. Master, everybody is afraid. Everybody is frightened. The feeling of insecurity in the country is huge. I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine 3-4 days ago, and he was telling me that he can't sleep. That these days, he notices that he can only sleep for 2 hours in the night. He will sleep small, and then he begin to wonder whether armed robbers are coming and so on. I mean, so many people are getting into this state of insecurity, which would affect national productivity and so on. I think it's important that we pay some very serious attention to this situation. You know what is interesting? If you look at the appointments that His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has made in the security sector, I think they are unprecedented. This is the first time, I think, in our history that you actually have a Minister for National Security. You have a Minister of State responsible for security. You have a National Security Coordinator with 3 deputies. Have a Minister of Interior. Have a Minister of Defense with deputies and so on. In fact, if you look at the security sector, high-level appointments are more than 8. And this is also the time when the situation is getting out of hand. Now, I happen to know somebody like Mr. Ken Dapa. Of course, all of us know him. And there's a lot to be said for that gentleman. A lot. I don't know what Ghana would have become if he was not appointed as the National Security Minister. We recall soon after the handing over, when the invisible forces and so on went crazy and were attacking everything and destroying everything and so on. And remember, he stood his ground, even against agitation from the party. And there were many leading members of the party who said, get rid of him because he's not playing the party card and so on. You remember? You understand? He took a personal interest in sanitizing the security system at the time. And I think, to be fair to Mr. Kandapa, we have to appreciate and recognize what he has done to bring about stability, as at now. Without him, if somebody else, if a hothead had been National Security Minister, this country would have had a lot of problems. So he's done a lot to stabilize the situation. But you see, unfortunately for him and unfortunately for all of us, you have this security situation of increased armed robbery persisting. He has to do something about it. I don't know what he can do. He's looking at some of the things that ought to be done. But he ought to take this matter seriously and to bring the same zeal and competence with which he fought against marauding party rascals. You know, he has to bring the same zeal and competence to bear on the fight against armed robbery. But you see, my brother, I cannot end this presentation without making reference to some developments, some public commentary that we have heard, which must be very disturbing. You know, former President Rawlings has spoken on this matter. In fact, there are two matters he has spoken on in the last 2 weeks. Neil Ante's comments about the conviction of Abu Gapele and then the spate of armed robbery. It is significant that in the same period, when he was asked to comment on the Corruption Perception Index, he claimed that he hadn't seen it, he hadn't heard about it. It's very, very significant. I don't know what radio he listens to, because it's the same radio which is announcing or talking about Abu Gapele's conviction, which is talking about the CPI. It's the same radio which is talking about the spate of armed robberies. So I don't know whether he listens to some very special radio which does not talk about Corruption Perception Index, but only about Abu Gapele and the rest. Maybe he has a special radio that he listens to. You understand? But it's possible that he has a special radio. Or maybe he doesn't even listen to radio at all, and that he depends on people going to him to tell him stories, and that those people have not found it necessary to tell him about the CPI and so on. It's possible, I grant him that. But you see, this is a former president. He's not just a former president. He is J.J. Rawlings. And he's telling us that, look, all of this armed robbery may be politically motivated with the intent of getting rid of some government appointees. So clearly he's saying that if it's politically motivated, then it's coming from the opposition. That's what he's telling us. What is he standing on? What is the basis of making that claim? Is he telling us that he actually believes or suspects that his own NDC, National Democratic Congress, could be organizing armed robberies? And if NDC can be organizing armed robberies, why is he still a founder of a party which can be organizing armed robberies to make a political point? I hope you understand what I'm saying. If indeed the founder of the NDC believes that NDC can be organizing armed robberies to make the current government look bad, or to make some of the current government's appointees look bad, why is he still in the NDC? Does he accept membership of parties which organize armed robberies? I just wonder. I just wonder. Look, all of us are not as privileged as he has been. He's been very privileged. Indeed, he's the only Ghanaian in recorded history who has managed to stay as head of state for 19 long years. Nobody, not even Nkrumah, achieved that feat. Nkrumah was president for, 9 or 8 years? 9 years. He had 10 years more than Nkrumah. He's a very privileged person. He's a very special person in our history. Forget the results of the 19 years. Don't let us talk about the results. The mere fact that he was there for 19 years. And I think that people expect something higher, something different, something edifying, something extraordinary from him. This performance, I'm afraid to say, is not edifying enough. You understand? It's not edifying enough. And I don't want to go beyond that. Why? What is the basis? And I'm hoping that he will not be referring us to Antoine Yama and Akunedi again. I'm just hoping that he will not be referring us to Antoine Yama and Akunedi again. Look, all of our leaders, whether they come from the CPP, NPP, NDC, or PNC, or whatever, PPP, whatever, have a responsibility to themselves, to all of us, to the nation, to rise above a certain, what do I say? I'm choosing my words very carefully. You know, all of our leaders have a responsibility to themselves. And I can see the atmosphere in the studio now. I mean, everybody is down, you can feel it. And so, where did that thing come from? That the armed robberies are politically motivated, or could be politically motivated, or maybe are politically motivated. Where is that coming from? My goodness.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pratt, for your submission. It brings us to some 15 more minutes before the sports guys join us here for the show. I'll go through quite a lot of messages, so many of them. I do hope I'm able to go through all of them before, you know, my time gets exhausted. This one from Tafa, from Amran here, says President Rawlings' attempt to link the state of insecurity with politics is unacceptable. So Mr. Rawlings can't express his opinion about what is going on without bringing politics into it, right? What kind of a politician will buy guns and give it to criminals to go and be robbing people for his personal gain? I personally know 3 people who were robbed recently, and 2 of them were members of the NDC. The other one is also a member of the NPP. So where is the so-called political motivation coming from? That's from Tafa from Amrahia. Abugri Suleimana says, Samin, following the discussion in your studio this morning, I am overwhelmed at how both the NDC MPs in your studio refuse to touch on their founder. Why? Are they scared of him? They made beautiful presentations, but they did not speak about what Mr. Pratt simply just said. How can an outsider be speaking about the internal issues within the NPP? The comrades in the studio must be bold, and the NDC must also be bold to deal with the issues of the former president, Jerry John Rawlings. He is drowning them. They should drown him before he drowns them. Enoch Tete Kwame says, Sammy, good morning to you and your team in the studio. You are doing a great job for Mother Ghana. Big ups to Uncle Kwesi Pratt. He's making my day on Alhaji and Alhaji, and you sent that from Asamankasi. Starring Wendell says, Nanado is in dire straits with insecurity at its peak ever. In these trying times, the onus lies with the individual to protect himself, because we can't rely on party goons to protect us. Good morning, Uncle Sam. Good morning to you as well. Starring for that message. Michael Amenin from the UK sends the message. The shake-up in the police command and the interim security measures instituted by the government of President Akufo-Addo in combating the recent spate of armed robbery attacks is good news, but we urge the government to make it a priority to install CCTV in all the major cities of Ghana to monitor the activities of people. We pray that these changes in the police administration and interim security measures instituted by the government will yield positive results. Ex-President Rawlings' statement that he hopes these armed robbery attacks can't be politically motivated is worth mentioning, because some people want to make President Akufo-Addo's government unpopular. This one from Victor Mankwa says, okay, Victor, thanks for the notification. You are bringing my attention to the fact that we have been off air for a period. I'm grateful for that. Summit, there is a very high sense of insecurity in the country. Today, one cannot sleep with his eyes closed. Today, when I see a motorbike coming ahead or behind, I have to find somewhere to dodge. we are not in normal times. That's your contribution. Stephen Kobnati says, good morning. It is clear that the efforts of government so far have resulted in an abysmal performance in the area of security. Unfortunately for the government, their very competent Vice President Baumia, as head of the Police Council, has this to show as his record. Under the watch of a competent Baumia, the police is organizing church services in place of equipment to work. Today, as a result of the abysmal performance, Inspector Aslivi is being buried as we speak. May his soul rest in perfect peace. That's from Stephen Kwabena Atu. Baba Musa sends the message. The attempt, Musa Abatwa in Kumasi says, the attempt to justify this damning and unprecedented level of insecurity we are witnessing today by some journalists, including Kukubako, is not worrying, but it's insincere to do that. The fact is that the government led by President Akufo-Addo has totally failed in the security sector. It's absolutely lazy and shambolic for somebody to suggest the security crisis is as a result of political motivation. That's yours as well. AU Farouk, you sent yours very early in the morning. Good morning to you. Okay, I've not earned the title of an honorable yet. Sami is okay for me. Good morning to you, Sami, and to your able panelists. No wonder Mr. Kofi Kumsin said he cannot sleep with his two eyes closed when another becomes president of this country. Today, what are we seeing and hearing? Insecurity everywhere. Lots of messages this morning on Facebook. Let me check out a few on Twitter and read them before the show comes to an end, and that will be 10 minutes from now. Okay, so this one says, it's from Hack BS on Twitter. It's sad our former President Rawlings is degrading himself to such a level, but when you have a president whose electoral victory was centered with the aid of hoodlums, expect nothing but lawlessness and insecurity. Cecil Adokli says the whole whining behavior of George Rawlings is because a member of the NDCs are afraid to confront him and say the truth straight to his face. I will let my MPs here respond to that for you. Something to think about seriously. That coming from Nana Asel. Wendleton, okay, you sent some smileys. Okay, Nana Asel, I think I've read yours already. Let me see. Patrick Aaron, this government is too arrogant. I don't know if the AG is still applying for Nolly prosecutor for the armed robbers. Gomda Abdul Hafiz says the previous administration has left physical evidences for every Ghanaian to see, but this government, I'm afraid. Habib in Saum says, tweets, the state of insecurity in Ghana today has caused fear and panic to everybody. When you turn your son into a monster, you are first to be devoured. That's yours as well. Lots and lots of text messages. Vincent Saki says, upon all the litany of security managers and their deputies under Akufo-Addo's government, they cannot combat crimes in Ghana. Well, talk they say is far cheaper than the actions. Adam Shakespeare says, one doesn't need to be a rocket scientist to understand that vigilante groups, Delta forces, and the cause of insecurity in the country. And the response is reshuffle. Competent people indeed. Humble Aman says, our security agencies are not up and doing. When you come to the northern region, armed robbery cases are uncountable every day. Now, the system is very hot, and yet we are not safe for the little resources we have. Azantilo tweets and says, clearly this government is confused and doesn't know what they are doing. Blame the increased spate of armed robberies on the vigilante groups' incompetence of Akufo-Addo and his government. Okay. Paul Maker tweets and says, I don't blame them, but blame the shithole government. Okay. And Donado. I'm sure you are quoting President Donald Trump. Anyway, so that's by way of the few text messages that we do have. My honorable MPs from the NDC stock are with me. They say you are not speaking to the issues of your founder.
Well, I think this one.
Okay, so you can use your microphone now.
Is that one?
Yeah, I think that one is working. I think. Okay, so then you can use you can use this one.
Well, I think that for me, when I read what he he said, I think that he tweeted, that's the understanding I got. For a moment, I felt that we didn't need to respond. It seems to me that our founder has lost his marbles. So if someone has lost his marbles, I really don't think that this is important. Because if you read what he wrote, the initial understanding I got was that he could mean any political party, whether NDC or MPP, because he says that, hey, I'm saying that he could mean, comrade, let me just explain why, and I'll tell you why. I'm not trying to defend him. I mean, it's the last statement I would ever want to defend. Because he said that he hoped it is not political, that internal and external. And then I asked myself, if it is internal, that will be understanding. But if you say external, if it's internal, it could mean within NPP. That's one. It could also mean within those in government. If it is external, it could mean without NPP. He will be referring to opposition parties, and in this case, NDC. Because if you look at the battle, and if you like, confrontational and divergent views taken by the political parties is more to do with NDC and MPP. But the question I asked myself, be it as it may, whether he meant within NPP or without MPP, I was shocked that he within the police service, without the police service, whether he meant whatever way. I was shocked that he could even imagine that you could even be talking about politics here. Because frankly speaking, those who are engaged in such armed robberies, they kill people. They don't ask the political coloration of the people before. Now, what will be any political party's interest to kill foreigners who are engaged in business in Ghana? The Lebanese who was gunned down. What interest will it be? And it is not as if that this thing is happening at one particular place. It is happening everywhere across the country. So that is why I think that when I read what he wrote, the more you read what he wrote, the more you try to find an understanding to it, the more confused you become. And it seems to me that now the former president is behaving like the current president. Someone must always explain what he means. He makes a statement, then someone must explain that, oh, he didn't mean this. This is what it means. And that is why I said perhaps he lost his marbles. And to be very honest, we must understand one thing. I have said on this program that he inspired some of us. And for me, he inspired me. He still inspires me. But I'm saying that as part of the probity accountability that he preaches every single day, the probity and accountability is not only limited to financial accountability, moral accountability. On my way, I heard one of the people you interviewed, and he was talking about moral decay. Now,
Brigadier General.
Exactly. And I think that for me, that is very important. That moral accountability. You see, when people begin to use themselves as standard to measure the conduct of every single person, you have a problem. So that if anybody lives a life that is not in conformity with his standard, then there is a problem. Frankly speaking, I would be a hypocrite if I say that I have never been inspired. He inspired me. His inspiration, but you see, the inspiration was anchored on the firm belief and conviction that he meant what he was preaching. Because if you inspire me, and I'm getting into something because I believe that you believe this position, that is the inspiration. Now, if I get into it and as time elapses, then I realize that the very principles that you espouse, and for which reason many of us were inspired into getting it, will begin to ask questions. And you see, when you begin to demand and ask questions about the conduct of our founder, then people will say, no, you are disrespecting the founder. I really don't think that that is what social democracy is about. Many of us haven't had the opportunity to have read books that inspired social democrats across the country, or if you like, left politicians across the country. Read the likes of Lenin. In fact, if you don't even want to read Osagyefo for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's books, if you want to domesticate the left political ideology, you cannot talk about left political ideology globally without talking about Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. You may have problems with him. And I'm saying that if you believe in a political party that espouses left ideas, social democratic ideas, the extent to which you are demanded to be transparent and accountable, it will be indeed short-sighted for you to assume that accountability and transparency is limited only to financial accountability. to a very large extent, the moral accountability is sine qua non to the achievement of the financial accountability. And that is why I would plead with him, to be very honest. When he does that, many of us who resist the temptation to say certain things about his conduct, I mean, people are beginning to get fed up. Frankly speaking, people are beginning to say that, look, it's now becoming too much. The NDC has been hounded into opposition. We are in opposition. What worse thing can ever happen to a political party than being hounded into opposition by the very people who think that, look, this is the ideals, this is the principles, and the very ideals and principles that they think that have been ramshackled, those things happened. Tell me one single government in this country that has never been accused for corruption. One single government, including the founders government, in which people were prosecuted and convicted. Now you had Mr. Martinamidu, who sat on the vetting and said that yes, under the Rawlings administration, Rawlings was a figure indeed who prevented corruption. Okay, yet he himself said on the same program that on the issue of quality grains, they advised people, they didn't listen. You think that anybody would have gone ahead with quality grains without the approval of the head of the state at that time, who is our founder? And I think that we need to understand something. I will sincerely plead with him that, look, don't lose the trust and the inspiration that many of us, regardless what he say, I still look up to him as somebody who would inspire us and will continue to inspire us.
Right.
But the moment he begin on that tangent, that your statement must always not be explained by somebody. If you make a statement, just be very bold, open enough. Now, is it not interesting that the issue of the CPI, which indeed was discussed by even radio stations who were unwilling to discuss them, everybody was compelled to discuss them. Every single radio stations in their news items carried this. The founder says he didn't know. Yet, Honorable Neil Lante's statement, which I disagreed with him, that one he saw it. And then quickly, less than 24, issued a statement or made a statement to that effect, condemning it. And this one you don't. And I think that, frankly speaking, is becoming so bad. And the earlier he looks for his marbles, the better.
Thank you very much, Comrade.
Patient.
Senior.
President Rawlings is not above criticism. You see, when we held our press conference, this issue came up. Now, it was clear that the tweet was bad for its ambiguity. The phrase, politically motivated, from within or without. What does that mean? Now, our refrain was that we were focused on the issues we had raised for the consumption of the public, and that we were not going to be distracted by that ambiguous tweet, and that that tweet could not by any stretch of imagination, amount to an accusation against the NDC, because our hands were clean. The further refrain was that we were not going to allow ourselves to be dragged into the unnecessary enterprise of having to interpret what appears to be a deliberately couched, statement which could pass for ambiguity. And that if the press was minded, they should go to President Rawlings himself and ask him to clarify his statement, so that if he was emphatic that he meant the NDC, then we could come up with an appropriate response. So we have not demonstrated cowardice at all. And our response to this, as suggested by our good friend. Thank you very much.
Honorable.
Why? After all, he is our founder. He taught us to be bold and courageous.
Yeah.
And so would subject him
positive defiance
to the same principles.
Positive defiance.
Positively defined.
Anyway, my guests this morning been quite an interesting show. My guests this morning have been the Honourable James Agaga. He's the Member of Parliament for Busa North, and Mr. Kwesipa Jr. He's the Managing Editor of the Insight newspaper. Comrade Murtala Ibrahim Mohammed is a former Deputy Trade and Industry Minister. I had about 3 text messages that were directed at you, but because they were personal, I skipped them, suggesting that you be featuring a lot more on the show. People loved your submission, I must say. A lot of them, I skipped them because there were many.
Thank you very much. I'm greatly inspired.
About 3.
Comrade Pratt. So I want to miss the opportunity to come here when they invite me a share. My good brother, Honorable Murtala.
All right, so folks, our attention this morning has been solely on an analysis of the increase in crime in our nation, Ghana. The recent spike of armed robberies in our country, the attacks on civilians, on businesses, on even the security agencies, the statement by the minority, and then also the police reshuffle. And it's been interesting discussing these issues dispassionately, but nothing at the back of our minds but the truth that you would have to hear. It's Saturday morning. We would have to leave you for the sports team to take over and take you into the world of sports and bring you the latest updates as well, whilst those sports enthusiasts also have your take with your views on the Chelseas and the Manchester Uniteds and the rest of them. My name is Samuel Ishen. Make a date with me Monday morning on your power station Radio Gold at 5:50 a.m. when we kickstart the Gold Power Drive. Do be blessed and enjoy your weekend.
To lead his people into the land of freedom. He's the Redeemer and the champion of liberty, of human equality. Let's salute him, fellow Ghanaians, the nation's founder, Sergeant Kwame Nkrumah. May God bless him, Ghana's showboy, Africa's great son, Sergeant Dr. Nkrumah.